Hello everyone and welcome back to AD. This is the third analysis video for the series Shuumatsu no Valkyrie, covering the third fight, Poseidon vs Sasaki Kojira. With such a loss streak creeping on humanity, they must seize a victory at this critical moment, to not continuously decrease morale. However, in response to such a tense situation, the gods send brother of Zeus, Poseidon. Before I get to Kojira, let's take a step back and talk about the Valkyrie. Unlike the previous two fights in this series, the Valkyrie is introduced before the fighter is, with her name being explained as one that trembles whether in fear or anger, something similar to having two personalities. This name shows later on to hold great value. Unlike Rangrit's, which was fairly straightforward, Hrist was one that allowed the user to re-Volund due to her being two. Later in the fight, this such action was seen. The scene of Brunhilde receiving a text message from an unknown individual regarding Poseidon being the next fighter is of great importance and should be highlighted for the future, as it could indicate that a god is leaking information to Brunhilde in regards to the order of fighters. However, I'll leave this to discuss in a future video at a later time and focus my attention on the fight. Brunhilde is shown to struggle to choose an opponent to go against Poseidon, a sign that not every contender chosen is a perfect counter to another. Rather than that, there would be a mix of counters on some who are there for their strength only. For example, Lubu was there for his pure strength, whilst Adam was there as the wild card. As such, we get introduced to Sasaki Kojiro, a man who kept chasing the way of the blade 400 years after death, also stating that his evolution is not over, suggesting that he would evolve much further in this match. In this time, it is also explained that contenders take their peak form in this tournament. What was interesting to see here is that Brunhilde did not know of Sasaki's continued pursuit of the blade, meaning that the Sasaki before the evolution was already strong enough to be considered a contender. With now 400 years of training past that point, he fits perfectly against such a fierce god. As the gods wait for the next contender, we see a change in the response of the gods, as they reduce the childish behaviour and see excitement and joy from this tournament, further showing the results of Adam's fight, which has reached the hearts of the gods, slowly taking those steps to change the perspective of the gods. Each introduction has taken steps to introduce character traits, and so does the one for Poseidon, showing a god who bears no love for humans and loves testing them. An important aspect to look into in this intro is the sea parting for him. This has been used to argue that Poseidon can control the sea. However, I would say that in this scenario it is used as mere symbolism, the sea making its way for the god ruling it, like a crowd of servants making their way for their king. The intro shows a different side to the gods spectating, as they fear Poseidon, the most fearsome god. In the previous fight, I posited that Zeus got to the position of power due to his love of fighting and display of fighting prowess. However, Poseidon seemed to have gotten to such a respectable position due to the terror that he causes, further shown later on when it is stated that no one has seen the full power of Poseidon, as well as when he glares at the crowd for cheering for him. Poseidon's first words spoken upon entering the arena clearly shows the character trait that he holds, Hubris. He sees both gods and humans as nothing but ants. In this round, humanity must fight against the pure hubris of the gods. Sasaki Kojira would seem to be the opposite of Poseidon, as he is a human who is titled as humanity's greatest loser. Upon Sasaki taking his form and calming the sea, Musashi declares that he has reached the form of enlightenment, stating that Sasaki is unparalleled beneath the heavens. Unparalleled swordsman who has lost every fight, fighting against the perfect god who has won every fight. The third fight starts with a shivering silence, as it shows Sasaki Kojiro's ability to partake in mind battles, showing him not being able to match Poseidon at all, whilst Poseidon simply not caring, for he will only smash any bug that stands in his way, The belief of no way to win and no way out puts Sasaki in a position where his only option is to fight. For once in his life, he is forced to a death fight. Before the fight starts, we start to get the backstory of Poseidon, going into the 13th god of Olympus and how Poseidon killed him, his own brother, and removed his name from the records, showcasing the lack of love towards family in the gods, with this lack of love going towards lack of loyalty, as it is shown that gods of Olympus and members of Zeus's council were ready to rebel against Zeus. Human emotions that were not expected to be seen from such beings who hold themselves at such a high standard to humanity. And within us seeing the human side of the gods, we then see the perfect god, the most inhuman of them all. Poseidon goes on to state that gods are perfect beings with no need for anything, and that is what makes Poseidon more godlike than any other. He has an authoritarian approach, one that views any other who does not act in the manner he sees fit as filth, never looking at anyone, a sign of lack of respect for even his own brother, for he has no love and trust for anything but his own self, as he himself is a perfect god. This is shown later on in the fight whilst the crowd cheers for Poseidon and he looks at them in anger. This to me shows that Poseidon only looks at something when he wishes to completely exterminate it, shown with the examples of when he looks at an individual, in the backstory looking at Adamus before he kills him, and later on in the fight when he stares at Sasaki preparing to increase his power and kill him. This is due to him being a perfect being, as a perfect being does not need to show respect for anyone nor address the presence of anyone. Being perfect means that there is nothing to learn, no effort to put forth, and no one above him. Right after Poseidon's backstory, we jump into Sasaki Kojiro's, showcasing a boy who has loved the sword since a young age and simply seemed to become stronger with the blade, not for fighting's sake or to boast, just to continuously fight stronger opponents. At the start, it is shown that Sasaki Kojiro gives up on a fight due to him seeing no way to defeat Kakikatsu in over 100 times, a number that he was accurate in as it took him 146 tries to surpass him later on. Due to the fact that Kakikatsu was so much stronger, Sasaki did not want to injure himself to grow in the possible future. This shows Sasaki's ability to gauge an individual's strength and have an idea of how long it will take to surpass him. Sasaki is another fighter who showcases the aspect of nature, more in tune with the literal nature itself, as he uses it as his teacher, learning and adapting to the flow of battle by observing the animals, as Sasaki shows no care for a rule of how to learn the blade, doing what he wants how he wants it, seeking merely enjoyment from surpassing stronger opponents. This enjoyment is shown upon fighting against Sagan, an opponent who is much stronger than he. We then see Sasaki Kojiro's amazing mental training, a thing that he uses to surpass everyone in his village, and upon doing such a feat, he felt nothing but boredom, for he never relishes in being at the peak. He wishes to lose and fight against someone stronger than himself, seeking enjoyment in growth. This backstory clearly showcases humbleness parallel to the hubris of Poseidon's. Delving into this, I would categorize it as Sophrosyne, a Greek concept of an excellent character and soundness of mind, often used as parallel to hubris, with an individual having this, also showcasing qualities such as temperance, moderation, prudence, purity, decorum, and self-control. I will go over each one and explain why I believe Sasaki hits those qualities. Temperance is one that is showcased early in the backstory, knowing when to give up and show self-restraint, as Cambridge Dictionary explained this personality trait as control of your own behaviour, and this would also tick the boxes for both moderation and self-control, with this also showing prudence with him being cautious to avoid risks, as prudent is defined as showing good judgment and avoiding risks. Sasaki also showcases appropriate social behavior throughout his backstory, addressing his opponents in the respect that he believes that they deserve, which would show that he does have decorum. This is also shown at the start of the fight, where Sasaki bows to Poseidon, asking to see his techniques. The only personality that I struggled to link to Sasaki is pure. It could be argued that Sasaki is pure due to him spending time in nature, or never seeking to kill his opponents, or no bad intentions behind his pursuit of the blade, seemingly pure intentions of only growing with the blade, complete love for the blade. Back to the fight, Sasaki holds his blade and fights in this Ragnarok for the people he lost against. They are his kin. They helped raise him to be the person that he is today, and he owes a huge debt of gratitude to those behind. And so he raises his blade against the lonely god of the sea, with the use of Tsuramagaishi grazing Poseidon's hair, something that is simple to happen in a fight. However, for Poseidon, this is a sign of disrespect. Damaging the perfect body of a god who never lost a fight is a sin that shall never be taken lightly. The ability to fight in his mind has evolved to an extent where by analysing every aspect of the opponent, his hair, the way he walks, and the way he grips his weapon, allows Sasaki to be able to make an exact copy for himself to fight against in a short period of time, and adapt to an opponent who hasn't taken a step forward yet. This fast adaptability that Sasaki holds would prove to be a precious weapon against Poseidon, who merely slowly ups his power. We see this slow upping of power in the Zeus fight. However, in that scenario, Zeus merely enjoys testing and prolonging the fight due to his love of war and fighting in general. However, Poseidon doesn't have the same approach. He merely uses the power he believes an ant is worthy of dying from, and if the ant does not die, he merely increases by small amounts. Expected from a god who treats humanity like nothing but insects and holds such hubris. But if he uses his real strength on something that he sees holding such low insignificance, what would he be? This is shown in the next few panels, with Poseidon smirking at the idea of a human predicting the moves of a god, and then grazing Sasaki to utter his first words to man, whilst he looks down on Sasaki and laughs, whilst he insults him. This next panel is the perfect panel that shows the parallel of the two characters, as Sasaki looks up as he starts to sweat, smiling at the face of struggle, fighting with all of his might, not only as a sign of respect, but also adversity in the face of despair, compared to Poseidon, who looks down on Sasaki without putting much effort, with his perfect face, with no sweat. Poseidon continues to raise his strength as he attempts to remove Sasaki, more specifically after Sasaki looks at Poseidon in such a pitiful way, feeling sorry for the way that he operates, which, for obvious reasons, angers Poseidon. An ant showing pity at a perfect being is not allowed. Sasaki shows continuous evolution, especially in the coming few panels, another theme thrown at us in this fight. Continuous evolution versus a perfect being. Sasaki, as stated before, found joy in evolving and found being at the peak meaningless, whilst Poseidon found being at the peak a part of his existence. Being born perfect would equal no need to seek strength or learn anything, simply being that perfect strength already evolved to the peak from birth. The abyss is used continuously throughout this fight. As such, we must look at the famous quote, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." The quote speaks for itself. Be careful when fighting against an evil being, for you may be forced to use an evil way to take him down. However, in this fight, Sasaki stares at the abyss and is able to reach the bottom. He looks into the abyss to understand the monster he is fighting. Once you finally understand the monster, you will inevitably reach that bottom of the abyss. In this fight, understanding would be linked to being able to know his full potential and know a counter, learning everything that Sasaki needs to learn, and that is what he does, and he is only able to do this by staring into the abyss as the ultimate scanner. This does go against the normal notion of this quote, which is that when seeing true evil, you only see evil as a means to counter. However, Sasaki continuously fights and is able to avoid such emotions, another reason as to why I believe Sasaki can be classed as pure. However, in this instance, it can also be argued that the Abyss did stare at Sasaki, as he only was able to win by copying the techniques of the gods, using that quote-unquote evil power to defeat that evil being. Going back to the fight, what I found interesting, and again more depth into Poseidon's character, is what he states in response to Sasaki perceiving an opening, as he addresses Sasaki as cocky, showing that to Poseidon an attempt to read or even attack a god or thinking that you have seen an opening is being arrogant. Not giving up despite seeing defeat angers Poseidon, as Sasaki starts to ask if Poseidon ever worked hard or cried for the people who helped him, or felt love for his opponent in a fight to the death, which simply confuses Poseidon, as he merely looks at such emotions as useless. Sasaki states that he fights with a sword that represents his history, his kin. This would put forward the theme of a lonely fighter versus a collective, shown heavily as Sasaki shows off his ability to learn and adapt the moves he sees, perfectly copying techniques from strong foes he fought. The next moments are very important, as I believe that Poseidon finally unleashes his full power. At the end of the day, I do not believe that he had any more techniques, or if he did, he just did not want to use them, choosing instead to forcibly crush Sasaki with full power. I state that Poseidon reaches full power because earlier, Poseidon's power was explained with the words, "The true depths of the ocean god remain a mystery even to his own kind." When Sasaki perceives the end of the abyss and reaches it, that limit was broken, introducing that true depth of the ocean god. This mention of depth to Poseidon's power was made earlier when Sasaki faces a shred of his power, stating that it's deep. With all of that in mind, I believe that in Poseidon's last moments, he was angered for being injured for the first time, with a slight hint of enjoyment, as he aims to crush the human with all his might. The crowd cheering for Poseidon and him silencing them plays a big role, especially in the next panels, as when Sasaki was ready to give up, like he usually does, he hears the crowd cheer for him and decides to pick the blade up once more, fighting for his kin. Poseidon chooses to fight alone, for fighting with others or support of others is against the nature of a god, while Sasaki fights as a collective, accepting the cheers and using his kin's techniques, finally touching the bottom of the abyss. Not only has he finally understood all there is to know about Poseidon's powers, from it he made his own power, as he steals the techniques of the gods. This one panel shows the underdog who struggled all his life to find people to lose against, facing the perfect god who has never lost in his life. As Sasaki slices Poseidon, with Poseidon reacting as a true warrior in relation to what was stated in the backstory. If you lose your sword, you use your fists. If you lose your fists, you use your teeth. Fight until the very end, and that is what Poseidon did. However, Poseidon never changes his attitude towards humanity, as he falls and calls Sasaki a piece of shit. The end of the fight was very interesting to see. Unlike the first two fights, the god did not change his perspective against the person that he fought against. We see the gods witnessing loss for the first time. Loki, who had jokingly looked at this tournament, enjoying the closeness of the matches, looks with fear at the possibility of death, whilst Zeus seems to show no care for losing his brother, simply stating that he lost due to him being weak. Rather than being angry for losing his brother, Zeus is angrier that humanity killed a Greek. Such an embarrassment will not be allowed. As such, they must repay such a loss. Throughout the past two fights, there has been a clear result and a step being taken forward for humanity. The first fight, Lubu was able to surpass the gods, a great mark in mankind, blocking and dodging the strongest god until his body could not take further damage, showcasing not only the strength of both god and man, but also the weakness of a human's body against the strongest god's strongest attack. With the next fight showcasing a miracle from humanity as Adam knocks out Zeus, starting off the fight with complete domination of the grandfather of the cosmos, with, again, his human body giving out on him, whilst his durability did not, fighting past death. And now, rather than focusing heavily on blocking, the human focuses on dodging and parrying, ensuring that techniques that are mastered are used, whilst continually evolving throughout the match. In the first match, we see the weakness of humanity, and in this one, we see the weakness of the gods. Hubris, arrogance that would not let them be embarrassed by using excessive power on just a human, caused Poseidon to lose, allowing Sasaki to slowly get used to his Tao and find an opening that he used. Sasaki showed a side to humanity that the gods never cared to look at: continual evolution. Overall, this fight remains my favourite fight of the series, with Sasaki being my favourite human. Looking forward to going in depth to the next fight. Before I end this video, I wanted to give a huge thanks to Lupus. Gave great criticism that's making me change the way I approach these videos to continuously improve. We'll keep taking this path and hopefully the next video will continue to be better. If you liked the video, please leave a like. Dislike if you disliked it. Comment if you believe I missed on anything, or if you have any advice on how to improve. Thank you so much for the support the channel has gotten lately. I really do appreciate it. See you guys next time.